Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the 28th installment of my Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links Best Deck series. Today I'm going to be showing you a deck purely based around Cyber Angels. So if you've paid attention to this game within the last 7 days or so, you'll notice this deck is quite popular as it's pretty strong. It's a pretty hard deck to learn and play, but once you've mastered it, you'll easily climb using it. This deck may even be the most powerful deck in the game at the moment. It's kind of close between this deck and Red Eyes. And without further ado, let's get into the video. Alright, so the best character for this deck is anybody, as the best skill for this deck is universal. The best skill is balance. What this skill does, it means your starting hand will reflect the card balance of your deck. So there are a couple of skills that work with Cyber Angels pretty well. The most notable two are Restart and Balance, simply because they make your starting hands really good, and the better your starting hand, the more likely you are to be able to summon your ritual monsters on the first turn. Personally, I prefer Balance for this deck, as this allows you to get guaranteed 2 monsters in your starting hand and 2 spells or a trap. So this means you nearly 70% of the time get 2 monsters in your hand, a ritual spell, and a defensive spell or trap to go with it, which generally keeps you being, like, your hand being perfect. That's like the perfect starting hand. Whereas if you use Restart, you're kind of relying on just RNGing a perfect hand, and if you didn't get it, you get a second try at that RNG for a perfect hand. Both these skills are generally okay for the deck, as this deck will function without them anyway. It's got so many cards that just pull monsters out from your deck and pull spells from out from your deck that you don't really need these skills to make the deck function well. So these skills just add that added bonus on top of it. So if you don't have either of them, don't worry, you can still technically play the deck, but I prefer Balance over Restart. Alright, now I'm going to go through the deck list. Just before I go through the deck list, I'd just like to apologise for my pronunciation in advance, because I have no idea how to pronounce some of these Cyber Angels, so I'm just going to give it my best shot. This deck contains 2 Cyber Angel Dakini, 1 Cyber Angel Idaten, 2 Cyber Angel Benten, 3 Senju of the Thousand Hands, 2 Cyber Petit Angel, 2 Machine Angel Absolute Ritual, 2 Enemy Controller, 3 Machine Angel Ritual, 2 Curse Seal the Forbidden Spell, and 1 Solemn Scolding. Alright, so the first card I'm going to talk about in this deck list as to why it's only a one-of is Solemn Scolding. Basically, this card is super powerful if you're going first. It's also super powerful if it's in your starting hand. If you use it any other time in the duel, most of the time you won't have the 3000 life point requirement it needs. Secondly, once you've used one of them, you won't be able to use another since it costs 3000 life points to use. So having this in your starting hand will make your turn really strong, your first turn. But anytime after that, it'll be a pretty bad draw to get. That's why I only have one of them in the deck. The next card I'm going to talk about is the Machine Angel Absolute Ritual, why there's only 2 of them. Basically, there's only 2 of them to try and make sure your starting hand is guaranteed a ritual spell. That's why there's 5 ritual spells in total, as well as the Petit Angels to try and draw one, or even the ritual monsters that can help gain extra ones. But you don't want to draw this one as your primary ritual spell, as this one doesn't give you the added bonus immunity to your monsters, which I'll talk about later on. Basically, this card is a comeback card. It's what you use once your ritual monsters have been destroyed, or if you want to just OTK your opponent by getting out another ritual monster using cards in your graveyard. So this is a card you want to draw later on in the duel, so that's why there's only 2 of them. Having it in your starting hand is not preferred. If you're missing any cards in the deck, like you only have 1 Cursed Seal, or you only have one of the ritual, you only have 2 of each of the ritual spells, feel free to add a Sonic Bird into the deck. It's a really good addition. In most of my gameplays, you'll notice I do have Sonic Bird, as I was kind of testing it with the deck. It does function pretty well. It's able to draw any of your ritual spells from the deck, which makes it pretty powerful, especially when you want to draw your comeback ritual spell. So if you're missing any cards, just add that card. And the last thing I'm going to talk about in terms of the deck list is the amount of ritual monsters compared to just generic monsters in the deck. So the first thing you'll notice is there's exactly 10 monsters. This is because if there's exactly 10 monster cards, you'll guarantee getting 2 monsters in your opening hand and 2 spells or 1 spell and 1 trap due to your balance skill. This gives you the best chance of getting a ritual spell summon on your first turn. Plus, if you have this exact amount of monsters, affect monsters to ritual monsters, you'll be able to draw the exact ritual monster you need for the exact situation you require. So your first turn summon will nearly always be the one you want. It's normally better to get at least one normal monster compared to a ritual monster in your starting hand, as you'll be able to then use that monster to gain an extra monster to your hand. So what I mean is you'll have then 2 ritual monsters and a normal monster to choose to use for your ritual summon. As all of your effect monsters in the deck that are not ritual monsters, all they do is just take a ritual monster or ritual card from your deck and add it to your hand. Alright, now I'm going to go through the strategy of the deck. So the strategy for this deck is kind of difficult to understand. I'll try my best to go through it all, but it's probably best if you go through the gameplay and then play the deck yourself, as this deck is kind of difficult to master. It's not that hard to learn once you've kind of got into it, but it's pretty difficult to master each individual situation, because there's a lot of different ways you can use these ritual monsters and like lots of different situations. So stick with me, but it's probably better you practice this deck for yourself. So the first core part of this deck is the ritual search monsters. What these monsters do is they allow you to draw either a ritual monster or your machine angel ritual from your deck to your hand. These 2 monsters are Cyber Petit Angel and Senju the Thousand Hands. Cyber Petit Angel is the stronger of the 2. Basically, it allows you to draw either of your ritual monsters and your machine angel ritual, whereas Senju the Thousand Hands only allows you to get one of your ritual monsters to your hand. Keep in mind that Cyber Petit Angel does not grab any ritual spell, it will only grab Machine Angel Ritual, not Machine Angel Absolute Ritual, as that's not concluded in the card text. Both of these are fairy monsters, fairy light monsters, which will become more apparent as to why that's useful later on when I go through some of the other cards. The only advantage of having Senju over Cyber Petit Angel is that it's a level 4 monster, so it can make it a little bit easier to do some of the ritual summons, such as if you have 2 Senjus in your hand, you can then do a ritual summon. Whereas if you only have 2 Cyber Petit Angels, you can't. But that situation's pretty rare, so it's normally better just to have the Cyber Petit Angel in your hand. So once you've now gotten your ritual search monsters out on the board, you are normally ready to do a ritual summon. Your ritual summon then comes from 2 ritual spells, Machine Angel Ritual and Machine Angel Absolute Ritual. So although these monsters both do a ritual summon for any of your Cyber Angels, they both have 2 very powerful secondary effects. The main one you're going to be using is Machine Angel Ritual, as once you've used this card's effect and it's been sent to the graveyard and you've done your ritual summon, this card then has its bonus effect of when a light monster you control is destroyed by card effect or by battle, you can then banish your Machine Angel Ritual from your graveyard to negate the effect or the damage to keep your Machine Angel alive, or your light monster alive. And I shouldn't say negate the damage, because you still do take the battle damage, I just mean your monster doesn't take the damage, your monster stays alive. So you want to use this card first to make sure you have that effect in your graveyard, so your big powerful monster stays alive on the board. Then there's Machine Angel Absolute Ritual. This card allows you to do a ritual summon using not only the cards in your hand and your board, but also cards in your graveyard, as long as they are fairy types. It will then shuffle those cards from your graveyard into your deck. So basically the main use of this card is a combat card. So once one of your fairy type monsters has been destroyed, or your ritual monster has been destroyed, you then have a backup to try and get those ritual monsters from your graveyard and use them to ritual summon another powerful one from your hand. It can also be used for just like an OTK, so once you've summoned your first Ritual Angel using Ritual Angel material, such as like any of the fairy monsters, you can then cast Machine Angel Absolute Ritual using the cards you literally just used to summon the first Cyber Angel, and get another Ritual monster out on the board. So then you have 2 monsters with over 2000 attack, instantly an OTK for your opponent. So now I'll talk about the Cyber Angels in particular. First I'll talk about the level 6 Cyber Angels. Both these cards work best when they're used together, and what I mean by this is Idaten has an added bonus of when it is tribute summoned, it will be able to grab a ritual spell from your graveyard and add it to your hand, and Benten has the added bonus of when it is used as a tribute, you can then add a light monster from your deck to your hand. So basically, if you use Cyber Angel Benten as a ritual tribute to summon Cyber Angel Idaten, you will then have a whole ritual combo in your hand ready to go. It doesn't mean they can't be used separately, it just means when they're used together they have a pretty remarkably strong combo. Cyber Angel Benten's ability can also apply to your Senju of the Thousand Hands and your Cyber Petit Angel. Most of the time it'll be better to apply it to these cards, as if you draw one of these cards to your hand, you can then use this card to get another ritual monster from your deck. So it's just like getting the ritual monster to your hand, except you'll have an extra monster to use for ritual summon afterwards. The last added effect I haven't really spoken about yet is with Cyber Angel Idaten, and that is if it is used as a tribute, it can then give all of your ritual monsters a bonus 1000 attack. Oh, and one more added bonus is with Cyber Angel Benten, and that is if Cyber Angel Benten destroys a monster, your opponent will take damage equal to that monster's defense. The final ritual monster in your deck is Cyber Angel Dakini. Basically, this monster is your win condition. This monster is your most powerful ritual monster, and it is by far the strongest. Basically, this monster has a very powerful stat line of 2700 attack and 2400 defense, as well as coming with a powerful effect of when it is ritual summoned, it makes your opponent choose one monster they control and destroys it. So if you go second and then you activate this ability, normally your opponent will then lose his entire board, as you will only have normally one monster. This combined with the fact that it also has the bonus effect of any defense position monster your opponent controls, if it is attacked by Dakini, it will inflict piercing damage, meaning it being in defense position doesn't matter, your opponent will still take damage to their life points. So if you combine Dakini with Idaten, you will then manage to get this card to have 3700 attack, which will then easily just kill out your opponent no matter what he does. So if your full combo all goes to plan, you'll have a Cyber Angel Dakini on the board, your opponent will have an empty board, your monster will have 3700 attack using Idaten's effect, and you'll have a Machine Angel Ritual in your graveyard, which will stop your Dakini being able to be destroyed by card effect, or being able to be destroyed by battle. And unsurprisingly, having an invincible 3700 attack monster on the board, which has piercing damage, is pretty good. The next component of strategy in this deck is the trap card part. Basically, your two trap cards in the deck are used to protect your ritual monsters early on, as there are a few ways they can be countered. Basically, if you've seen any guide on how to beat any of the Cyber Angel decks, they'll tell you the exact same thing. Enemy Controller. Enemy Controller is by far the biggest counter to this deck. What Enemy Controller can do is once you've summoned your Cyber Angel Dakini, they contribute their monster, take control of your Dakini, and then use Dakini's own effect against itself to destroy itself. So that's why you run cards like Curse Seal or the Forbidden Spell, so when they activate their enemy controller, you can then discard one spell from your hand, and make sure they can never cast enemy controller again. As what Curse Seal the Forbidden Spell does, is it allows you to discard one spell card from your hand to the graveyard, to negate the effect of one spell card your opponent controls, and make sure they can never cast a spell with the exact same name for the rest of the duel. Curse Seal the Forbidden Spell has an insane power level. Basically, not only does it stop your opponent casting that spell for the rest of the duel, it also means that card just becomes a dead draw, as it doesn't destroy the card, it just stops your opponent casting it. So if they ever draw that spell card, they'll never be able to use it, so it's just a dead draw for them. Also, it makes one of their extra spell slots, if they have one of these cards in their spell slots already, that spell slot can then never be used, as it'll just be taken up by a card that can never be activated. Enemy Controller is not the only target for Curse Seal, obviously. There are many other targets, including Cyber Angel cards themselves. Like if you hit a Machine Angel Ritual with your Curse Seal, your opponent can never use that ritual spell again, which makes it pretty hard for them to do their ritual summons. You can also hit cards like Polymerization as well, which will make fusion decks really hard to fusion summon with. The last thing to mention about this card is it does require you having a spell card in your hand to use it, so quite often you may want to just use your Cyber Petit Angel to get a ritual spell from your deck, as that can then be used as a spell card for your Curse Seal. The last trap card in this deck is Solemn Scolding. This card itself is really strong. It can negate basically any effect monster, it can negate any spell, it can negate any trap, and then destroy them. So this card is really powerful to have in your starting hand, as I've spoken about before when I talked about the deck list. If you have this card on the board, on their turn 1, when your opponent activates absolutely anything, you can negate it, and pretty much destroy the whole turn if you use it at the right time. The fact this takes 3000 life points to do isn't really that much of a hassle, as this deck you probably won't be taking life point damage anyway. If you're taking life point damage, you're probably losing the duel regardless. If you activate Solemn Scolding, your opponent won't be able to do damage to you, as this card should be able to negate pretty much anything your opponent does on his first turn, and destroy his whole turn. Not only that, but if you can use this card just to defend one of your Cyber Angels, you can literally just use it to just stop anything your opponent does to try and destroy it. So it's really good defensively as well. The last card in this deck is Enemy Controller. Basically, the reason Enemy Controller is in here is for 3 reasons. First, you need extra spells to use with your Curse Seal, the Forbidden spell, which is what Enemy Controller is here for. Secondly, it's in here to counter Cyber Angels, as I've talked about before, as this is the biggest counter to Cyber Angels, and the deck is extremely popular right now. Third, this card is also another way to tribute your monsters without being tribute summoned, as this card allows you to tribute a card. So basically this can proc any of your ritual monsters' tribute effects, and at the same time counter the most popular deck in the game. That's pretty much the only reason why it's in here. This card obviously has the added bonus of also being able to be used for what its effect is, which is take control of an opponent's monster for an OTK, or you can change one of your opponent's monsters into defense position when they try to attack you, as enemy control is normally used for. Alright guys, that's pretty much it for the strategy of this deck. If you have any questions or comments, put them down below. There will be gameplay at the end of this video which will show this deck in action. It is pretty hard to get your head around, as there's a lot of things to remember. So if you don't quite understand it, don't worry. With a bit of practice, you'll easily be able to understand what this deck does. Probably the added advantage of this deck is most of the cards you can get from just farming alone, so you don't really need to worry about spending lots of gems on this deck, mostly just spending a lot of time trying to farm this deck. But anyway guys, thank you guys for watching, like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff, and I hope to see you in the next one.